Welcome to the Gonzaga University Understanding Your Financial Aid Offer webinar. We're so excited that you're here tonight. We're so excited that you are so strongly considering Gonzaga University. I am Steve Keller. I am the Director of Admission here at GU, and I am joined by many wonderful friends and colleagues tonight. And we're all excited to talk to you about your financial aid offer and financial support that is available right here at Gonzaga. A few things just to note before we get officially started. First, this is being recorded and we plan on having it available later as well. So if you want to come back and reference this, please do so. Next, we're in just a minute, we're going to disable the chat. Not yet though. And we encourage people to use the Q&A function. The Q&A function does send in your messages in anonymously. Well, it's supposed to, but this is a financial aid webinar, and we know that there might be a temptation to enter in personal information. We would just discourage you from doing that. Please keep your questions free from personal information. If you want to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody from the amazing financial aid office here at Gonzaga University, that information will be shared with you so you can schedule an appointment and you can have an in-depth one-on-one conversation at that time. Now, before I go ahead and introduce some of our wonderful guests here this evening, let's go to the chat real quick. We have people who are joining us from all across the country. Can everybody just open up the chat and just quickly type in where you're joining from? Lots of California, Oregon, Hawaii. We've got some Chicago, Canada, Wenatchee, Alaska, Houston, San Jose, another Alaska, Arizona. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for chatting. Coming from all over. Well, thank you for being here this evening. And it's my privilege to introduce Sarah Everett. Sarah Everett is the Dean of Student Financial Services here at Gonzaga University. And she is going to be running the presentation this evening, and she's also going to introduce her colleagues that are with her. So, Sarah?
Thanks, Steve. Thank you all for being here. It's fun to see people from both locally and far away. So really appreciate you spending your time tonight to be with us as we walk you through some of the nuts and bolts of understanding your financial aid offer. I'm here with my colleagues today. We have Helen from the financial aid office, Shaylin from the financial aid office, and Cole as well. And then my colleagues, Rosa and Will and Steve, of course, from the Office of Undergraduate Admission, and they will all be working hard in the Q&A. So I think that you should absolutely take advantage of your opportunity to ask questions throughout this process. And again, like Steve mentioned, just because financial aid stuff can be a little bit specific and personal, just, refrain from sharing anything too specific, but do know that we are absolutely available to help. And your questions help us make sure that we're getting the right message out as well. So if you're not understanding something that's being said, we would love to kind of hear and know. And if you have the question, I'm guessing other people do as well. So just another invitation to be using that Q&A box. So I'm going to attempt to share the presentation now. Let's see, colleagues, am I all good on sharing? Great. Okay, so let's kind of start off. The goal tonight is really to walk through the financial aid offer and answer some questions and just give you a little bit more information about what's behind those figures. But before we dive into the details about financial aid offers, I just want to take a moment and highlight our mission and approach to assisting students and families with this process. We see Gonzaga's mission in everything we do, even and maybe especially in the financial aid office, and we hope you see that reflected in our service to students and our policies. we see our role not only to assist families and students, but also to help develop and educate students through our work. And as we've acknowledged a couple times already this evening, finances can be super personal. And if you don't get your questions answered today, or when other questions, not if, but when other questions come up throughout this process, don't hesitate to contact us and ask for help. We take a team approach. We are well-staffed. We are experienced. We generally are able to connect students or families that call in with financial aid counselors kind of same day, and if not same day, we'll be in touch with you very soon. So we take pride in our exceptional service and kind of high touch approach. And we know financial aid can be confusing. We try to not make it confusing as much as we can, but we know that it can be confusing, and we just want to know that we're here to really help and guide you through the process. Next up, I thought it would be kind of helpful to let the group know really where we're at in the timeline. We're recording this in mid-March, and we have, you've all applied to Gonzaga, been accepted. Many of you have completed a FAFSA or WASFA form. And we're in the kind of time frame where students are receiving their financial aid offers. And most financial aid offers were mailed out either in mid-February or mid-March, including a batch that was just mailed out at the end of last week on March 14th. So if you haven't checked your physical mailbox recently and are expecting a financial aid offer, that would be a really good reason to just get in touch with us, and we can check on that for you. Once you've received your financial aid offer, the next part is some discernment, excuse me, and kind of determining if Gonzaga is the right fit. And we believe strongly that the right fit would also include the right financial fit as well. So I want to just talk a little bit, if you're spending your time with us tonight, interested in how to understand your financial aid offer, that probably means that cost might be a factor. So I want to talk a little bit about whether or not you should apply if you're still on the fence. This is a bit of a shameless plug, but the financial aid offers that we've sent out are to those students that have applied for financial aid, either using the FAFSA application, the free application for federal student aid, which most students are going to be able to use, or the WASFA application, which is a state financial aid application. If cost is in any way a factor of where you're going to attend college, I would especially encourage you to submit a FAFSA application in this first year. Much of what we're going to be talking about tonight is geared towards students that are eligible to submit a FAFSA, although not information, but just want to kind of make the plug. If you're wondering if you should submit a FAFSA, the answer is probably yes if you're spending your time watching this webinar. But if, again, plugging our high touch approach, if you want someone to kind of talk through your financial situation, you're welcome to reach out to us, and we can let you know if we think it's going to be worth it. And the FAFSA is for students in certain citizenship statuses, and we know that that might not be everyone in our applicant pool. So I want to talk a little bit about how undocumented students qualify for aid and what type of aid they qualify for. So first, know that all students, regardless of citizenship status, are automatically considered for merit scholarships, those scholarships that are awarded with the admissions process, most commonly called the Gonzaga Academic Excellence Scholarship. Students who are not eligible to submit a FAFSA application can submit a Washington application for state financial aid if they're Washington residents, or we have a need analysis form on our website as well. There's also some resources on the screen for outside scholarships and different types of databases that have scholarship applications for students that don't have any citizenship requirements. And we do have a special contact in our financial aid office. Her name is Sharon Griffith, and she is fantastic. So if this describes your status or you're unsure of your eligibility, submit a FAFSA application. Again, get in touch with us. I'm sounding a bit like a broken record, but I really do hope you take us up on our offer to get in touch with us. Okay, moving on a little bit about the financial aid offer. And I want to highlight a couple things here. This seems super basic, but I've been at a series of events and may have met even some of you at those events. And this is kind of in reflection to some of the questions that I've received. So first, know that the financial aid offer letter is separate from your admission offer packet. It is sent via regular mail, and it is sent in kind of your standard, I think it's called an A8 like business size envelope with a Gonzaga logo as the return address. And students who were received their acceptance packets in December would have received this in the mail, or would have been sent in the mail in mid-February. And if you received your acceptance packet in February, you would have just be getting it in your mail in the last couple of days. I'll share that I am the parent of a junior in high school and know the dozens of mailings from colleges that come. So, if you're expecting something in the mail and haven't yet received it, I'd go to have and check. And if you're expecting something and, maybe you should have received it in mid-February and haven't yet, or don't trust that it got to the right spot, feel free to give us a call and we'll get that reprinted and out to you as well. So you're going to receive this packet in the mail. It's a 8.5 by 11, kind of folded in half. So there's 4 pages to it. And the first page is going to cover the cost of attendance and including both direct and indirect costs. So cost of attendance is actually a term that most schools, really all schools, use. It's a figure that all schools have to produce to provide students with an estimate for the various costs that students or families are going to incur to attend college. The cost of attendance in your financial aid office is based on campus living expenses. On-campus living is required for the first 2 years unless you already live nearby campus. Nearby meaning in the kind of greater Spokane area. The cost of attendance includes both direct and indirect costs. So direct cost, we would describe as those things that Gonzaga is going to charge you via your student account. So tuition, your class fees and program fees, and on-campus housing and meal plans if you're living on campus. There's also a category included in the cost of attendance called indirect costs. These are things like books and supplies, personal and transportation expenses, and loan fees for students borrowing loans. And note that these are averages, while tuition there's kind of a block or fixed rate for tuition for all students attending full-time. The other categories on here may vary depending on you or your student's specific course load or living arrangement or that sort of thing. But back to the indirect costs, we have books and supplies, personal and transportation expenses, and loan fees. And again, these are not things that Gonzaga is going to charge you directly. You could use Gonzaga's bookstore to purchase your books, but you're not required to. And so we would consider that an indirect cost. And your books are not going to appear on your bill. And that is also true of personal and transportation expenses, which might include flights or kind of travel expenses to and from campus, particularly if you live far away, or it might include personal expenses like running to Target to buy shampoo, that sort of thing. So know that the cost includes both of those things. The total cost of attendance for a student living on campus for the next school year is $79,798. And over the course of the next few minutes, that is a very large number, and I recognize that. And over the course of the next few minutes, we're going to talk about the various resources that you'll have as students to bring down that out-of-pocket cost. So on the bottom half of this financial aid offer here is gift aid. And gift aid is grants and scholarships, and these are funds that don't need to be repaid. So the Gonzaga Academic Excellence Scholarship, the scholarship that many of you were awarded with your admissions offer, that is a type of gift aid. Other common types are Gonzaga Grant, the Catholic High School Alumni Grant, which our Spike the Bulldog character here received in his financial aid offer, the Washington College Grant, and Pell Grant and Access Pledge are also types of gift aid. And we helpfully kind of grouped all this gift aid together so you don't have to guess what is gift and what is not aid. It's broken apart for you. Again, this is money that doesn't need to be repaid and can be used to offset the cost of attending Gonzaga. On that same page towards the bottom, you'll see the net price. And this net price is the difference between the cost of attendance and the grants and scholarships and gift aid that you've received. So we see that, here Spike's cost of attendance was over $79,000. He received $37,000 in gift aid. So the net price is dropped to $42,798. And know that this isn't the end of the financial aid offer. This is just kind of talking about the free money first that doesn't need to be repaid. A couple important things to note about types of gift aid at Gonzaga, and one I think is a really important thing to consider when you're thinking about different financial aid offers from schools, and that is the Gonzaga guarantee, or really the renewability criteria for the grants and scholarships that you're being offered. Gonzaga actually has a really long history of having a guarantee, and what it is that we kind of guarantee that the scholarships and grants that you were awarded from Gonzaga, those funds where Gonzaga is the making the award to you, they're going to remain the same for all 4 years of your enrollment, as long as you stayed enrolled full-time and in good standing. You'll know whether or not something is from Gonzaga or not based on the first word in here. So if this student received federal or state aid, it would start with that word, or that, federal or state would be in the name of the program. Otherwise, it is aid from Gonzaga. A couple important things to know about this policy. Again, students would need to kind of stay enrolled full-time in the fall and spring semester. That is taking at least 12 credits. They need to be maintaining good academic standing. And we define good, I think this is a fairly low bar for most of our students. Good standing is maintaining a 2.0 GPA and completing 2/3 of the classes that you attempt. We know that most of our students are going to do much, much better than that. We do have to have some standards to ensure students are progressing towards their degrees, but we want to kind of keep it as minimal as possible so students and families can count on this financial aid every year. Note that this includes your Gonzaga aid, but not federal, state, or other outside funding. In my experience, those amounts stay pretty consistent for students throughout their enrollment. But it's not something that we can guarantee because it's not in our control in that way. Another really important program that we have is something called the Gonzaga Access Pledge. And if you or your student is eligible for this program, they'll see a fund called Gonzaga Access Pledge on your financial aid offer. And I wanted to call this out here. Not everyone is going to qualify for this, but it is a really neat program, and I think it's important that students understand kind of what it entails. So students from the state of Washington who qualify for the federal Pell Grant, which is a grant based on financial need, are eligible to receive full tuition. Essentially, the sum of all the grants and scholarships exceed tuition. And if they maintain that eligibility for the Pell Grant, they'll maintain that full tuition commitment throughout their 4 years at Gonzaga. So by combining federal, state, and Gonzaga's own resources, our goal is to make Gonzaga a real possibility for high need students in the state of Washington. It's our commitment to supporting Washington students, and there are a few out-of-state students who also qualify for this, and supporting those students who have been admitted to Gonzaga and have the highest financial need. Okay, so we are working through our fictional financial aid offer here for Spike the Bulldog. We're on kind of page 3 of this financial aid offer. And talking about the options to cover Spike's net price. So the first section here is student loans. These are loans that the student borrows in their name. And there's 2 main types of federal loans here. One is the subsidized loan program. The other is the unsubsidized loan program. Spike is not eligible for subsidized loans because those are loans that are based on financial need. And it's a great benefit because the government actually pays the interest while students are in school. Students can borrow up to $3,500 in the subsidized loan program. There's also an unsubsidized loan program, and that is what Spike's eligible for here. Unsubsidized loans are not based on financial need, and interest will start to accrue within a reasonable time after disbursement. I want to say it's 60 days. Students can be making interest-only payments on those loans, but they're not sort of receiving the benefit of having someone else pay the interest. Students can borrow up to $5,500 total between both loan types. So some students might have $3,500 in subsidized loan and $2,000 in unsubsidized loan. Other students might have the full $5,500 in unsubsidized loan. There are also private loans. These are loans that come from banks or other lenders. Students are the borrowers for private loans, and most private loans will require a credit-worthy cosigner to qualify. It doesn't necessarily have to be a parent. It can be a parent, but doesn't necessarily have to be a parent. A family friend or a grandparent, aunt, uncle could also be the cosigner for private loans. And then there's also a federal loan program called the Parent Plus loan. And this is a loan where parents borrow on behalf of their student. It is a federal loan program. Generally, the terms and interest rates and repayment options are going to be better in the federal student loan programs first. So we'd encourage students to kind of pursue those options. But if additional funds are needed, the Parent Plus loan can for sure be an option. Note for both private alternative loans as well as the Parent Plus loans, because there is a credit component with both of those, the Parent Plus loan is going to require the absence of negative credit. So not credit check, the absence of negative credit. You can't really apply for those quite yet. Mid-April is generally the earliest you can apply because we want to essentially make sure that the credit doesn't expire before the funds need to be dispersed to the student's account. Another really important resource for students to help reduce that cost of attending Gonzaga is student employment. Many students work part-time while enrolled, and Gonzaga has plenty of work opportunities. We have about 2,100 students working on campus in a variety of different roles. Washington's minimum wage is $16.66 per hour, and most students are going to work about 10 to 12 hours per week. Paychecks are issued twice a month, so it's a great way to earn while balancing school. There's a lot of other great reasons to work beyond just the monetary benefits of receiving a paycheck. Again, as a parent of a prospective college student very soon here, I'm thinking about this through the lens of, work as another way for students to get just plugged in and connected to different campus resources. It's another set of caring adults to kind of help students navigate the college, making sure they know about the resources that are available. We have many students that work in our financial aid office, and we'll bring them treats or celebrate their birthdays, and also kind of create community and space for them to get together. Some students are going to qualify for work study, which is a type of student employment. It's a need-based student employment program funded in part by the federal and state programs. But it's really important just to know that work study eligibility doesn't limit your job options. It's kind of more of an accounting thing that we do on the back end. Students with and without work study generally have access to the same positions. There's really no difference in pay rates. To the student, it is a job that they're going to get paychecks a couple of times a month. And there are folks on the back end kind of coordinating. There's a subsidy of the wages, but to the student, we try to make it invisible to the student and their supervisor, so that everyone kind of has access to the same job opportunities. We also typically have more jobs available than students that want to work. I wouldn't call any job particularly competitive, but there's some jobs that are maybe more desirable than others, and those tend to get scooped up earlier in the process. But if work is something that you're interested in, we will absolutely assist you in kind of getting connected with opportunities and making sure that you know how to navigate the process. There's a really great webinar that is our student employee colleagues will put on Tuesday, April 1st, and that will go into a lot more details about what to expect from the timeline. The job board typically opens in early August, how to apply, what you need to do before applying, and what documentation you need to bring to campus when you move in August to secure a position. So we've covered most of the aspects of the financial aid offer. So I want to talk a little bit about what's next. And these are all summarized on the back of that financial aid offer as well. So one thing to know is that kind of from this point forward, students will be managing their financial aid and a host of other things in an online portal called ZagWeb. ZagWeb is where you're not only going to manage financial aid, but you're also going to submit a timesheet if you're in a work study or have an on-campus job. It's where you're going to register for classes, but financial aid is students' usually first introduction to ZagWeb. You actually are going to access ZagWeb via your ZagMail account. So I just want to take a second to make sure students understand how to set that up. So Gonzaga, many of the systems, maybe all of the systems on campus require something called single sign-on. And single sign-on is essentially your ZagMail email address and the password associated with that, so your credentials. So all accepted students are assigned a ZagMail account. And again, this is going to be your email platform, but that username and password will be critical for other things on campus as well. If you've not yet set up your ZagMail account, you can find instructions on how to do that in your application portal where you learned kind of your acceptance to Gonzaga. Apply.gonzaga.edu/status. We hear most families and students that we've been working with so far in the process seem to have been able to navigate to this fairly smoothly. But if you need help or are having issues, don't hesitate to let us know. Okay, so we've established that you need your ZagMail credentials to log into ZagWeb. We might need to think of some new names for some of these things. We like to use Zag a lot, but once you're in ZagWeb, this is what it's going to look like. There'll be a series of different tiles that are going to kind of help guide you to where you need to go. And one of those tiles will be a financial aid tab. It may not be in this position, but you'll see it there with the nice statue and the spires in the background. And once you click on that tab, you'll be taken into the financial aid portal, and there's a series of tabs across the top to kind of help you navigate. Some students may need to submit additional documentation. We'll send you emails about that. You'll also see it in ZagWeb. That's not super common. Most students don't need to do anything other than accept or decline loans, for instance, kind of in ZagWeb to sort of accept their award. All the grants and scholarships are auto-accepted. But ZagWeb is also where we will let you know if anything has changed with your financial aid, and we'll direct you there to view your financial aid in there. So Next step is loan requirements. So for students who are intending to borrow loans, there's going to be two things we ask you to do. And when I say we, it is we and Gonzaga. We will be the ones coordinating this, but it's essentially the Department of Education that these are requirements to borrow federal loans. So students will need to do entrance counseling and also sign a master promissory note. Entrance counseling is essentially just additional information about the loan and the repayment terms and that sort of thing. And the master promissory note is sort of the legal binding document that making sure you understand and acknowledge your legal obligation to eventually repay the loans. And then parents who are going to apply for a PLUS loan, you're going to need to also complete an application as well as a couple of loan requirements. But again, that's not going to be available till mid-April. For the student loan portion, there's no harm in doing this entrance counseling and master promissory note. Now it is available. You certainly can do it. There's also no rush to do it. This is something that we'll ask you to have done by early August or so, depending on how quickly you want to work through it. It might take less than 10 minutes. It might take up to an hour. Either way, it's not a huge time commitment, but just want to make students aware that it's something that you may be asked to do if you accept your loans. Another thing that, when you're kind of in the position where you've decided on Gonzaga and ready to kind of move on to the next steps, it's important to be thinking about payment options or payment arrangements and kind of figuring out, how your balance is going to be covered based on the different options you have for paying down your student account. So first, know that Gonzaga bills by semester. So sometime in mid-July, you'll receive an official statement of account from Gonzaga that will outline all of your charges for the fall semester. It'll also have a summary of your financial aid that has been accepted to that date and give you essentially a balance. And you have a few options from there. You can pay the total amount of your bill upfront by the deadline, which is usually sometime in the first week of August for the fall semester and January for the spring semester. Gonzaga has interest-free payment plan options. These are administered in our office, in our student accounts office. So if you prefer to break up your payments, you can use these payment options. It divides the payments into 4 months for the fall semester, the first payment due in August, and then September, October, and November. And then for the spring semester, the first payment would be due in January, and then there would be payments in February, March, and April. And we've discussed kind of parent loans and private education alternative loans. Starting in April, you could be making arrangements to have that information. Most often, the money will be transferred directly from your lender to Gonzaga, and we'll use that to offset your student account. And know that any combination of these can kind of also be used. So if you have maybe an amount of money you'd like to make in kind of lump sum to start the semester and then divide the rest up into payments, or you'd like to use a combination of a Parent Plus loan and payment plans, that is all reasonable. Billing activity and kind of payment plan arrangements, that doesn't really start to pick up until July and later, but I know we get many questions and families who are eager to kind of figure out how this all works. And we very much appreciate that as well. One thing I do want to acknowledge that's really important is most billing statements by default will only go to the student, but students can set up what's called an authorized payer. So oftentimes they'll want to be sure to set a parent up as an authorized payer, particularly if they're going to help the student navigate the billing and payment process. Of course, that's not true for all students, but there is an authorized payer feature that would grant someone else access to see those payments. In addition to a parent, it doesn't necessarily have to be a parent. Maybe there's a extended family member, grandparent, older sibling, helping them navigate the payment process, or like a high school counselor or college advocate. Authorized payer, more information will come again as billing starts to really pick up after May 1st and on into the summer. One important resource to consider, and there's a few reasons I mentioned this, but one important resource to consider is outside scholarships. Outside scholarships are scholarships that are awarded by organizations other than Gonzaga. And we see our students bring in usually between $2 and $3 million annually in outside scholarships. But I do think it's really important to approach them realistically. First, know that 97% of outside scholarships are less than $2,000. So it's unrealistic to expect to cover your full tuition. Very rarely are we seeing scholarships in the tens of thousands of dollars or more. In fact, I can only think of a few times in my close to 20-year career in financial aid where that has actually happened. So if you haven't found that scholarship yet or haven't been awarded that $40,000 a year scholarship yet, know that you're not really doing anything wrong. That just kind of, I think it gets oversimplified or overemphasized, I think, in some parts of this navigating the college process. What we do find is that most outside scholarships come from organizations that students already have a relationship with. So rather than kind of blindly doing internet searches for outside scholarships, I would encourage students to think about different organizations that they've been a part of at any point in their life. Like for instance, I know that my children's elementary school, their PTO has a scholarship, a small scholarship that they'll award to alumni of that elementary school. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, club sports that they've been involved with, employers, the parents or grandparents, employers, all can be resources for outside scholarships, but it's really important to approach them realistically. And we have a few resources on the screen here for where you might find additional information. The other thing I want to add, and this is only going to apply to a small percentage of students that enroll at Gonzaga, is just a little bit about a family discount policy that we have. So for families that have two siblings simultaneously enrolled, the older sibling gets a 10% tuition discount. And I do like to mention it just because we often don't have a great way to identify people from the same household. So we do ask that you self-identify and let us know. So if that describes your situation or your potential situation next year, please do reach out and let us know. There's a form on our website, or you can just email us to let us know that you'll have two students enrolled at the same time next year. Note that this only applies if undergraduate students are enrolled at the same time. So unfortunately, grad does not apply. For students who are military connected, whether you yourself are a student veteran or a dependent of a service member, we accept many, probably all, benefits, military veterans benefits. We have just a few of the available programs used by currently enrolled students. Post 9/11 GI Bill, Yellow Ribbon Program, Montgomery GI Bill, Chapter 35 for survivors and dependents, as well as vocational rehab benefits. It's important to note that there is a process for transferring service member benefits through to a dependent through the Department of Defense. And then dependents in return will have to apply to the VA to have that be transferred to Gonzaga. And that can be, I wouldn't say difficult, but maybe a little time consuming. So if you are intending to transfer benefits to a dependent and haven't kind of researched that process, now would probably be a good time to do that. And the last thing I believe before we do some live question and answer is just to talk a little bit about our special circumstances process. We didn't go into a ton of detail about the financial aid applications here, and there are some webinars that do that, but we do know that the FAFSA takes kind of financial circumstances from 2023 into consideration, and that the FAFSA just in general may not fully capture your family's circumstances. So we have a financial aid appeal process, or also known as a special conditions appeal process, where we ask for a bit more information to better understand your family circumstances and just ensure that we can provide you with the best financial aid offer with the information that we have. Some common reasons that students might submit an appeal or their parents might appeal on their behalf is for those families who are paying tuition either for other college students, elementary or secondary tuition as well. If you've experienced any sort of job loss, reduction in income, that would be another really good reason. Medical or dental expenses not covered by insurance. You're supporting family members outside of the home, or maybe having to maintain two households for employment purposes, that sort of thing. It is there's a form on our website, and it is we try to have it be a pretty low lift on your end. We ask just a few questions, and we'll take a look at your FAFSA application and see if we might make any adjustments. Sometimes the appeal will result in a request for kind of an interview or additional phone call to better understand and kind of walk through the FAFSA process or the figures that we're seeing on the FAFSA and just make sure that everything has been captured correctly. Sometimes we might be able to sort of make updates to your award or determine that no updates can be made, and we'll let you know right away. But we try to make this process as essentially as easy as possible on your end, but do also need some additional information. So if you're wondering or you think that there's things about your financial circumstances that aren't taken into account on the FAFSA, then I would strongly encourage you to use this process to let us know about that. So I think we might have a little bit of time for some questions. I do want to let you know that in addition to questions that we can answer here, that tomorrow we actually are, the financial aid office is doing a takeover on Instagram of the ZAG admissions account, and there'll be Q&A tomorrow as well. So we encourage you to engage with that as well. So I don't know, Steve, I didn't have the Q&A box up. Are there questions that we can answer?
Yes, we do have some excellent questions to answer. First, can a non-music major seeking to play in a student orchestra or band get scholarship funds?
Is this my question, or are you going to answer this?
This is for you, passing it on to
Okay.
you.
I am not sure, actually. I'm trying to think if I have any information recently that would help me answer this question, and I think that that would be a good reason to get in touch with our office, unless, Steve, you have a more concrete answer in this moment.
Yes, that is an excellent question. For students who are interested in music, I know that there are music scholarships for students when you first come into the university, and I believe that there are some opportunities after you are already here. But that is a process, at least for sure, for the incoming students. There is an application, and there is a rehearsal tryout process that is a part of that. For questions about music, the music department is excellent. They're really great to work with. It's music@gonzaga.edu. You can ask those questions directly of them, or you can reach out to us in the Office of Admissions. It's admissions@gonzaga.edu, and we can provide you with more specific information.
Great.
Yes, excellent question. I am seeing, will the academic merit scholarship automatically be applied to the semester's invoice?
Yeah, great question. And yes, it is all automatic. It just offsets the student account. It will be, first of all, it's automatically accepted. We don't ask you to accept it. If you enroll at Gonzaga, you receive it. It will be in your billing portal as soon as a bill is generated. We do have to bills are not generated until after registration and housing is assigned and that sort of thing. So you won't see a bill until mid-July, but it is automatic and not something that you have to worry about getting applied. And I think we get that right like 99.9999% of the time. So I'm pretty confident in that process.
Perfect. Thank you. Here are some other questions that have been answered, but just in case people have not been monitoring the Q&A, they're really applicable to many people. So are the grants, scholarships guaranteed each year?
The grants and scholarships from Gonzaga are guaranteed each year. So the Gonzaga grant, the Gonzaga Academic Excellence Scholarship, the Catholic High School Alumni Scholarship, the amount initially offered in the Gonzaga Access Pledge. And in fact, in our computer system, it is really as simple as a copy and paste from year to year. So those will roll forward automatically as students progress towards their degree. The federal Pell Grant, the federal SCOG grant, and the Washington College grant, we're a little bit at the mercy of the federal Department of Education and our state higher education board. And while there are, I think, some rhetoric around the Department of Education, I'm fairly confident in the funding for those remaining level as well. If you qualify for the Pell Grant or the Washington College Grant, you'll need to reapply for financial aid every year and kind of requalify for those based on your family's financial circumstances. So it's not guaranteed in the way that we can guarantee our Gonzaga financial aid. But in my experience, students' eligibility remains pretty consistent throughout their time at Gonzaga.
Excellent. Another question, is Gonzaga a stacking school?
I think this is maybe a question in here I see about outside scholarships. So, so reframing the question, can you sort of receive outside scholarships and get them in addition to the financial aid that you were awarded? And in most cases, yes, any outside scholarships that you bring in, very rarely is that going to impact your financial aid. We would reduce work study opportunity or loans before we reduce any grants and scholarships. And we do our darndest to get really creative to allow students to keep as much financial aid as possible. Do you think that answered the question? Okay.
Is tuition fixed upon admission for the 4 years?
Tuition is not fixed upon admission. Historically, it's gone up between 3% and 4%. I think it's a 3.24% increase between this year and next year.
Another good question, does financial aid apply to study abroad as well?
Oh, that's a good question. Gosh, we should have had that in the presentation. Yes. For students who are going to study abroad in the fall or spring semester, either at our Gonzaga in Florence campus or at one of our, I think, dozens of sponsored programs, Gonzaga handles the billing and the collection and your financial aid. You'll be eligible for the same amount of financial aid. So essentially your tuition is the same. And your financial aid will offset that tuition. And then the additional cost for study abroad, of course, would be travel to and from the site, as well as the living expenses when you're in wherever you're going to be. So meals, housing, depending on the program and the setup.
Next, if our child is awarded a scholarship, is that gift aid considered income, and do we have to declare it on our tax return?
I am not a tax professional, but I do know the answer to this question. If your dependent is awarded a scholarship, so long as that amount isn't, the sum total of their grants and scholarships is not in excess of tuition, books, and supplies, it is not considered taxable income.
Excellent. Looking for some other questions. If we do not see work study under the financial aid list, does that mean that we do not qualify?
So work study is a type of student employment, and any student that would be eligible to work in the United States would qualify for student employment. So I wouldn't get too hung up on whether or not a student was offered work study as a part of their financial aid award, because the opportunities are going to be nearly identical. There is a type of financial aid called work study, but really the benefit is on the employer side. The wages are subsidized by either the state or the federal government, and it's more of an accounting, and kind of we work our magic on the back end to really minimize the impact to students, and really supervisors. Supervisors don't know whether or not a student qualifies for need-based work study, so they're not making any hiring preferences. There are a small number of state work study jobs at off-campus employers that you have to have state work study to work in those. But other than that, any on-campus job would be open to any student who is willing to and could work on campus.
There are also several questions about the length of time to graduation. If the student takes 4.5 years or 5 years, if those loans, or not the loans, if the funding will stop at 4 years.
No, it will not stop at 4 years. So assuming that students are making good progress towards their degree, they will be eligible for that Gonzaga guarantee, and permitted to continue to be enrolled at Gonzaga. So sometimes we need to have student let us know what their plan is, but the absence of that information on a financial aid offer doesn't mean that they're not eligible. It just is kind of a request for an extension of financial aid eligibility. I do want to cover, though, that the financial aid that you're offered through this process is for undergraduate degrees. We want you to be successful in obtaining that undergraduate degree and go on to whatever's next. And if that happens to be perhaps a graduate program or law school at Gonzaga, financial aid kind of gets reassessed at those points in the process, and you would be kind of awarded based on whatever the criteria is for those programs at that future point.
Excellent. If my child has a 529, how do we transfer this to GU?
Oh, great question too. I should add that to the student account slide. So 529s are a type of college saving plans that many families have in Washington. There's Dream Ahead and there's a GET program, and then there's many other states and kind of private financial institutions that also do these 529 plans. How it gets transferred is going to vary depending on whoever the provider is. So I would encourage you to kind of get logged into that provider. And if you're like me and maybe need to reset a password or two, kind of getting that all set up, June-ish, July-ish would be a good idea. Once in there, every provider is going to be slightly different, but essentially the process is going to be similar in that there's going to be a place for you to designate which school you want to transfer the funds to. They will either cut us a check or wire us funds, and we'll get that applied to the student's account. But the initiation is going to start at that 529 provider, whatever financial institution or organization is managing that.
Great. One more question. Are there additional scholarship opportunities once students are at Gonzaga?
Yeah, that's a great question. We work really hard to try to give the best possible financial aid offer out the door. And I would encourage you to kind of think about the financial aid offer that you've received and make a plan based on that information. That being said, it is not impossible for students to get other funding resources throughout their time at Gonzaga. There are some scholarships that are awarded to upper division students as they get more established in their major, particularly in business or engineering tend to have more than some of the other majors, but there's kind of opportunities for many different programs. In addition to scholarships, I would also be thinking about different work opportunities, like resident assistants get uh, their meals and housing covered. That is a fairly big time commitment, but it also is a fairly big payoff. And there's other opportunities like hosting students that come visit campus, or even different types of work opportunities that might provide other financial resources as well. But because we want families to have a clear picture and don't want to dangle the potential for additional funding, and kind of misrepresent the opportunities that might be available, I think it's important to kind of be thinking that, okay, this is going to be the financial aid that we're going to receive 4 years, and again, make sure that that's something that your family's comfortable with.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we have one final question. If my student would like to defer for a year, would the gift aid defer also?
Yeah, I think that it could potentially, and we, as we reset financial aid opportunities each year and do, kind of take a different approach each year, that what we would probably have you do is go through the process, and if for some reason the aid offered for the fall 2025 is better than fall 2026, I think that we would honor that in a deferment, assuming that you're kind of in touch with us. But I also wouldn't be surprised, historically things have gone up just a little bit with each year, so it might work out to kind of go through the normal process as well.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. And we are coming close to time. There are still some open questions. We'll do our very best to answer those here before we leave tonight, but not live because we're coming close to our time. I would like to echo some of the things that Sarah said earlier at the beginning of her presentation. The financial aid office at Gonzaga, they're really so friendly, they're knowledgeable, and they're really accessible. Please don't hesitate to reach out to the financial aid office for any of your financial questions. Very helpful, wonderful people, fully staffed. So please reach out to them. Note that you can also participate in the Instagram takeover. You can do Q&As on Instagram tomorrow as well. You can also reach out to the Office of Admission. We're happy to assist you and redirect you for any of your questions. And finally, I'd just like to take a quick minute. Sarah, thank you so much. Cole, Rosa, Helen, Shaylin, thank you, Will, everybody for participating in this webinar tonight. And to all of our wonderful admitted students, congratulations to you. We're so excited. We know that this is a time period of intense decision making, and we are here to help you make the best decision for you. We do hope you will choose Gonzaga, and we're here to cheer you on wherever you decide to go. Thanks so much for joining tonight. Sure glad to have you here, and go Zags.